There's something seriously disturbing about this picture, at least according to epidemiologists. Few, if any, countries in the world have as many gyms per capita as does Brazil, where physical fitness is an obsession. But the permission to reopen gyms, bars, restaurants, and shopping centers in Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, Brazil's two biggest cities, comes just as the country surpasses 1.6 million infections and more than 65,000 deaths from COVID-19. EDUARDO NETO, technical director of this gym, applauds the move.
I am very optimistic because physical activity is part of the solution to the problem. People have to exercise.
But as this graph shows, at the top of the list of places people should stay away from during a pandemic are bars, gyms, and self-service restaurants because of the high risk of contagion. I asked epidemiologist JULIVAL RIBEIRO if Brazil was near the peak of the infections.
In much of Brazil, not only has it not reached a peak, but rather it is spreading to places that have far weaker public health services than in the main cities. Places that don't have emergency care units or other basics. And in a country as large as Brazil, you can't just move patients to places with better care.
One of those remote places, of course, is the Amazon rainforest, where hundreds of indigenous people have already been infected. Brazil's public prosecutor is investigating charges presented by indigenous rights advocates. That last week's visit to some of the most isolated tribes, like the Yanomami, by members of the Defense Ministry, has spread the virus. The ministry refutes the charges.
How can an organization that is concerned about indigenous people be upset by us giving medical treatment and food to indigenous peoples?
But world-renowned Brazilian photographer and Amazon preservationist SEBASTIAO SALGADO says that's absurd.
The Brazilian authorities know, have known, and will see again that the indigenous people don't have the antibodies to protect themselves from diseases that come from outside the forest. So the penetration into indigenous territories promoted by President Bolsonaro is really genocide.
Whether in Brazil's most remote areas or in its major cities, the spread of coronavirus remains out of control, despite measures spurred by economic pressures that would make it seem that the pandemic is almost over. Lucia, Newman, Al Jazeera.